Hey guys, it's Gina. I want to run you through this project that I made for the Remember Every Day September challenge. And every month, Shelly and I challenge ourselves to use our silhouette. So in this case, for the month of September, I used a die cut from the silhouette on 10 different layouts. It was the same die cut, and I made 10 different layouts. And this is the first video of that series. And before the end of October, the whole series, there are 9 more videos in this series. So by the end of October, they should all be up. That is something that I'm working on. So I started with this piece of very chaotic looking polka dots, and I covered the whole page with clear gesso, or however you want to say that word. And then this is a die cut that came, it's been in my, it's not, this is not the die cut that from the Silhouette store. This is a die cut cardstock that I bought a long time ago, and it's been sitting in my scrap paper for quite a long time. So I decided to use that as a mask on over top of this piece of white and black polka dot cardstock. And I'm using gelatos here to I'm gonna make like a gradation sort of, I don't know, sort of rainbowish kind of outline around these letters, and most of this is going to get caught up. Most of this is going to get covered up, but I had a lot of fun playing with gelatos. I haven't really used them before. I'm gonna make this go from blue to green. And the reason that I used the gesso on the background, and it was clear because I didn't want to use the white gesso to cover up those polka dots. I wanted the polka dots to be seen. But I used the gesso to give some sturdiness, if you will, to this background paper, because it was quite, what's the word I'm looking for? It was quite flimsy. And I wanted it to hold up against the water that I knew I was going to put on it. So I'm using 4 or 5 different colors of gelatos, and I started by putting my finger in water and then smearing the color around with it. And then I'm not too keen so much on getting my hands dirty. So I decided to go ahead and use a baby wipe, and I did put some temporary adhesive on that die cut, but as you can see, I'm kind of pulling it up. But I want to get the color pretty close, and there you go. And it turned out it really looks good, I thought, and I should have probably left it there. But my idea was there is I'm going to put this die cut back down, and there are a few letters of my nephew's name in this die cut, and my idea initially was that I would just go through this die cut and outline just the letters that are in his name. And I'm using a Pit Artist pen here, and I started with a fine, but you really couldn't see that. So now I'm using, I don't know what they call these, the jumbo, I don't know, but the Pit Artist pens. They're India ink, I believe, so they're gonna take your they're waterproof, so they're not going to mess up the gelatos. They're not going to smear them or anything like that. And like I said, I started by only wanting to outline the letters of his name that were included in this die cut, but after I did that, I realized there's no O, and then there's no I mean, there is, but when I was doing this, I realized that you weren't really going to be able to see the other letters. And I decided after a while that I would just go ahead and outline the whole thing. So I would give it this, I would just go around and outline every letter in this die cut. And it took a little bit of time, but I think in the end it was worth it. It definitely makes that the white letters stand out more as you see the final layout. So this is just going to take a little bit of time. I don't know if they sell, and nor do I own a Pit Artist brush marker that comes in between that fine one and this one. But if I did own one, or they did make it, I would have probably used it on this. These lines are a little bit bolder than I would have liked, but in the end, like I said, I cover most of this up, so it's not that big a deal. But I'm just gonna go through, and I did in between, I did dry the gesso with my heat tool on front and back sides of this paper to help it dry faster, because I am impatient and just want to move on. And I had blood drawn that week, and that's that bruise you see on my arm there. So I just had to point that out. I'm a tough stick, so I always get a little bit of a bruise when they draw my blood. But she got it on the first try. I was very happy about that. What else can I entertain you with while I do that? Oh, look, it's done. So, like I said, I mean, in retrospect, that actually looks pretty good to me. I was happy that I did that. So I'm just wiping my fingers off. I can't. Something about dirty fingers. I really don't like it. And the other thing I would have done in retrospect is cover that entire page with the gelato colors, but you know, you live and learn. I'm pulling out some alcohol inks here, and here's a stencil, and I thought I was going to use this paint splatter kind of stencil, but I decided against that, and I do have some Tim Holtz stamps there that I'm going to use a little bit later, but right now, what I did was I pulled out my black scraps, my black paper scraps, and I just pulled out a bunch of different layers, and you're going to see me here. I'm going to cut those off. And these are all, like I said, just from my scrap drawer. So I keep my scraps in color order, by color, I guess. I don't know, guys. It's late, and I'm really tired. So this is going to be an interesting voiceover. But I just took a bunch of those scraps that I had, and I've had them for years and years. Since I started scrapbooking, I've never thrown them away. So I couldn't tell you honestly how old any of this paper is. But I'm just going through and pulling them out and cutting them off and just kind of positioning them behind my photo to make some layers and to pull the photo away from that very busy background that I have going on. But I'm toning it down a bit by only using a very monochromatic black and white behind the photo. And I thought about bringing in this gray, but that didn't work. And I really like this. There you go, you'll see. I really like that pattern. It had, like, you see the typewriter sort of letters there, and then then that one with the text on it. So trying as much as possible to bring in a little bit of school theme. And I'm trying to use this paper and decide that I don't really like it. And this is kind of a weird, this kid loves to play the guitar. And that's a DCWV paper. And I'm just trying to think, like, it doesn't really go with back to school, but I wanted something to give the layout a little bit of, I don't know, to separate it out a little bit. So I decided that I'm going to use this guitar paper. And I'm going to cut it down so you can see guitars on both sides. So it's very obvious that it's guitars, because you're only going to see, a slice of it on each side. So I'm pretty sure that about wraps up the... Here's just some black shiny cardstock I thought about using. And then here's a gray stripe that I thought about using, and I end up not using it. And then here's a lighter color, because I don't know how you guys feel, and but I don't like how all the angles end. But I had to just get over that with this layout and just be like, you know what? The angles are what they are, and I'm just going to go with it. And it actually, I mean, in the end, when the project is all over, I really kind of like how this turned out with the layers. And now I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with the die cut. That is the die cut that I used on all 11. One of them is too little to go to school. All 10. I have 11 nieces and nephews. Only 10 of them go to school so far. And here I was like, I really need something to go across, like out of that rosette kind of thing that says grade 3. You can't see it so good right now because it's white on white, but it says grade 3 behind there, and I needed something to just kind of add to that upper part of that photo so it didn't look so choppy. So I just took my notebook Fisker's punch and some black cardstock and just punched out some notebook edged paper, and I'm going to lay that up there so it goes behind the photo and cut that off a little bit. And you noticed a little bit ago that I cut off that black paper on the bottom hung down much further than it does now when I was first playing with this, but I cut most of that off as well, and I think that gave it more balance. I had thought that I was going to use these Pink Fresh Studio letters. They're a weird texture. I don't even know. They're kind of like rubbery. they're not acetate. They're I don't know what they are, but I really when I had them all laid out and it spelled out his name and his grade and back to school, I think, or something like that. But they didn't match what I was going for with this layout, so I decided that I was just going to ditch them. And then I'm going to use some, first I'm putting gel medium over my entire layout very lightly because I don't want to smear the gelatos. So gelatos are water, they're water based. They react with water. So I'm putting a very thin layer of gel medium over this because I know I want to use some alcohol inks and I want to use some modeling paste, but I don't want that to muddle my gelato color. So just a very light brush stroke over the gelatos with that gel medium, and that will make my gelato permanent. It like acts as a sealer. So now if I get water or something on the page, it won't mess with my colors, which is what I was going for there. So just a little bit of that. I'm going to put this over to the side, I think. I thought I was going to put that off to the side now to dry, but I guess I'm not. When you use a very, yeah, I thought I was. When you use a very thin layer like that, it dries pretty quickly. I didn't hit it with a heat gun or anything like that. I just put it to the side and continued working on my layout while that dried. So my silhouette does a really good job cutting when you put the right settings on, and obviously for this die cut I didn't use the right settings, so I'm having to use my Tim Holtz tool. Not Tim Holtz, that's not the Tim Holtz one. I don't know who makes that pink one. It's a Brad setter is what it really is. But so I just poked out all of the leftover pieces from that die cut that got stuck when I pulled it off of my silhouette mat. So I know I want to mat this. Anytime I do a mixed media layout, it warps the background paper. So I tend to always mat that with a piece of cardstock. So because I can't get it to sit in my paper trimmer the way I want it to because it's so warped, I decided to just take a metal ruler and my X-Acto knife and just cut off the edges of the paper like that so that I'll get a border to put around it, but a very thin border. I didn't want to, I don't want a very thick border, but I do want a cardstock backing for this so that when it goes in my book it'll lay kind of flat. And actually I did this layout about 2 weeks ago and it's been sitting in a stack of layouts since then, and it is laying pretty flat right now, so it's not that big a deal. But I do find that it's much better if you mount it on or back it with a piece of cardstock. Now unfortunately that molding paste that I have there is a bit dried out. I don't know how that happened. I've had it for years and years and years, but I don't know how that happened. So now I'm just going to move along and use this. This is I don't know, it's not the best modeling paste it's Artist Loft, I think, is the maker of this modeling paste. It works just fine for my needs. But the other one was dried out, which was a little weird. So I'm adding these stars, and I'm going to add them to the lower left and the lower right hand side, the lower left and the upper right hand side of this layout, just to give the layout a little bit more texture. And of course, I put the stencil right over the stars that I had already put on there, but it's kind of a messy layout, so it didn't bother me too much. But it didn't, and it didn't mess up the stars that badly, so I just let it go. On this side, I'm going to go all the way to the edges in this upper right-hand corner of the layout, and then I'm going to let this modeling paste dry after I put it in there. I really like using these stencils with modeling paste. I don't do these kind of layouts that often, mostly because I'm lazy and they take a long time. But I do enjoy it when I do it. I realized when I did that upper part that I didn't put enough stars on the lower left-hand side because I extended the upper right out to the actual edges of the layout. And I didn't do that on the lower left. Yeah, so I extended it all the way out to the edges on the upper right and didn't do that on the lower left, so wanted to add that, add some more there. So I made a bit of a mess here. You can see those dots where I put the alcohol ink directly onto the cardstock. And the great thing about alcohol inks is they dry super quick because they're alcohol based, obviously. So, but I put those dots on there and then didn't blend them fast enough, so you get that sort of dotty look right in the middle. But because I'm putting that grade 3 over the top of it, it didn't really matter. It looks fine. But I used some blending solution and some of that alcohol ink to make my die cut. And then what I did was I just took the extra. The white was too stark, I thought, for where this particular item was going to go on my layout. So I thought it was a little bit stark. So I just kind of dirtied it up a little bit with a little bit of alcohol ink that I thinned out with the blending solution. So I don't use alcohol ink that often, but it was I don't know, it was sitting around. So I thought, you know what, you own all these alcohol inks, so let's use them. So I'm going to use them again later on in this layout, and I don't know. I don't quite like how it turned out. I wish I wouldn't have used them. I'm going to use my Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher, and I'm going to put staples all the way around this die cut, and that is the die cut from the Silhouette store. So that was the challenge, to use a die cut from the store, and I'm going to lay that right up there on top of right next to my nephew's head. And I'm still going to try to use those letters, and right away I'm like, the colors are so wrong, they don't match. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? Oh, you can see here, oh, it didn't video that. Oh, I must have had the camera off when I did that, but you can see where I splashed the alcohol ink on top of those stars that I put down with that molding paste. It's okay. It's a little messy for my liking, but it's okay. But I did just drip alcohol ink on top of those on top of that molding paste, and so then it seeped. So I mean, it's not terrible looking, but I wish I hadn't have done that. So I put down the grade 3 with some dimensional adhesive, and now I'm going to use my StazOn ink because I have that gel medium on part of this layout, so it's kind of a slick surface. So I'm going to use my StazOn around that, and I'm just going to use these Tim Holtz stamps. One of them is a compass, and the other one is like a train tag. And I'm not doing any journaling on this layout, not really, because there's nothing much to say. I mean, he's going back to school. That's all there is to say. I'm going to use this stamp that says "Enjoy the Journey." I'm going to put this in the lower right-hand side of this layout. Why didn't I use my StazOn? I don't know why I didn't use StazOn for that. should have. My black ink from Stampin' Up! Is dry. That's why I didn't use that. So I went and got my Memento ink and used that instead. But, so I'm going to put some, just to add a little bit of color to this, I'm going to put some silver brads, kind of to bring out that silver from that glitter paper. So I'm just going to add some silver brads around the layout in a few places. I think I'll only add like 3 of them, just to make that visual triangle around his picture. And, you know, brads are a pain in the butt. Mostly what I was having trouble with here was finding the ones that didn't have the rhinestones on the top of them. Most of my silver brads have that, like, sort of, you know, gemstone look on the top of them. So I had to find 3 that didn't. And now I'm like, I think the layout needs something else. So I'm going to go through... Oh, excuse me. My CD case just fell over. I'm going to go through, I have these puffy stickers, and I thought I would try to use them, but the colors don't match this layout at all. Those are puffy stickers from October Afternoon, I believe, but they don't match my layout at all. But I'm going to pull out, so I pulled out some Amy Tan stickers here. I'm going to apologize about that phone, I'm sorry. Because they basically I'm using these stickers because because they match the layout, and that was the only reason. And I've had them for ages and ages. I'm going to use this, a couple of these little stickers. One says "You are amazing." I'm going to put that up on dimensional adhesive. The other one says "Don't be normal, be marvelous." And I'm going to add another one that says "I love every little thing about you." And so I'm going to add that one. That one says "You're amazing." That's the one right there that says "I love everything about you." Put that up. I'm putting all of the stickers up on dimensional adhesive. And I'm using a thicker adhesive than I normally use for my Stampin'. I normally use Stampin' Up! Adhesive, dimensional adhesive. But for this one, I decided that I would use some thicker adhesive, some thicker dimensional adhesive, so these really pop up off the page. And then I was trying to use that acetate piece or that vellum piece, and that didn't work. And just on the train ticket at the bottom, I'm adding my nephew's name, the year, and he's back to school. And that wraps up this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.